Hi everyone, how are you doing? Today we are going to start our session has to do with future forms of the verbs or the different future forms of the verbs that we have already studying, that we have been studying during this unit, right? But the gist of today's session is to give you a final revision about these future forms of the verbs, right? I'm going to give you a presentation before we go over to the practice that has to do with today's evidence, right? With today's academic workshop, double CA academic workshop evidence, right? Now, what do we have here in the slide, guides, is the future forms of the verb as a final revision. Okay, let's go. The first weeks, we analyze the difference between will future and be going to future that has to do with decisions and predictions. But what kind of decisions and what kind of predictions are we talking about here? This is all about, guys, this is all about, okay, decisions that are immediate, either immediate decisions or decisions that were previously made. I mean, decisions made before now. Don't forget to take into consideration the time, the line time, all right? And predictions based on a personal conviction or based on a personal belief, or maybe predictions that are ongoing, that are happening right now at the moment of speaking. I mean now. Okay, let's go through some examples, guys. Tony will go to the bathroom. In this case, this sentence gist is immediate decision or spontaneous decision. That is to say, a decision that was made before now. In this case, it is not that. It is an emergency. You didn't plan before to go to the bathroom exactly at this time and today at this place. So that's why we use the will future to talk about an immediate decision. Sentence number two. I think Mary will do shopping this week. In this case, observe that you're using a personal belief phrase. I think. In this case, I think it's a prediction that I think emphasizes a prediction based on a personal conviction or a personal belief. That's why we use will future in this sentence. I think Mary will do shopping this week. Sentence number three. Observe that in the third sentence, guys, we are using going to future. Tony is going to go to Paris for holidays. In this case, we are using going to future for expressing a future event that is all about a plan, or in other words, a decision made before now. That's why we use be going to future for expressing this. Tony is going to go to Paris for holidays in terms of planned decision or a planned intention. Observe the two sentences that we have here beneath. Observe that in both sentences there is a yellow highlighted phrase that reads, Tony is drinking wine too fast. But what is the difference? Well, first of all, the similarity. The similarity between these two sentences. Tony is drinking wine too fast. He is going to get drunk. He isn't going to be able to drive. And the sentence, I see that Tony is drinking wine too fast. I think he will get drunk. I don't think he will be able to drive. What they have in common is that they both are predictions, but they are not the same kind of prediction. In the first sentence, the yellow highlighted part, it's an ongoing evidence that leads to a very hot to a almost 100% of probability for a future event to take place in the future. That evidence is the yellow highlighted part. Tony is drinking wine too fast. That's why we use be going to for future form of the verb in both sentences. That's why we say Tony is drinking wine too fast. He is going to get drunk. He isn't going to be able to drive. That is a prediction based on an ongoing evidence. That means that anyone who sees that present evidence will infer almost the same for the future by the use going to future form of the verb. On the other hand, we use I see that Tony is drinking wine too fast. I think he will get drunk. I don't think he will be able to drive. This is also a kind of a prediction, but based on a personal belief or on a personal conviction. Observe the phrases that are purple highlighted. I see, I think, and I don't think. In this case, as you are expressing your own personal belief, you are to use will future and you are to use expressions such as I see, I think, I don't think to emphasize that the prediction you are making is based on your own beliefs. Then we analyze the use of will and shall as modal auxiliary verbs in questions. What is the difference between using will and shall in questions? Well, the difference is very simple. The difference here is that will is used for making requests. That is to say, you ask someone for a favor. You want somebody else to you want to get somebody else to do something for you. On the other hand, we use shall only with I and we. The first person singular and the first person plural as a subject to talk about offering or suggesting something for future meaning. Let's analyze these conversations. Conversation 1. Will you stop the car? Let's imagine that you are on a road trip and then you are the passenger and you ask the driver. Letter A. Will you stop the car, please? I need to pee. Yes, of course. By using will future for stop in a question, you are asking somebody else for a favor because you have a necessity, an immediate and spontaneous necessity. That's why we use will in a question. But observe in the next conversation, now the roles are switched. Now, now the driver suggests or offers something to the passenger by asking the question. Letter A. Shall I stop the car? I see you need to pee. Yes, please. This is not about asking somebody else for a favor, but offering somebody else to do something for that other person or making a suggestion to do something for that other person. That is what we use shall for in questions with I and we as the subject. Observe that the subject here is I, the first person singular. And then finally, we have here this one, fixed future and arranged future. This is the first thing, the first week topic that has to do with present tenses for future meaning. Don't forget that we borrowed the present simple form of the verb for talking about fixed future, and we borrowed the present continuous form of the verb to talk about arranged future. Observe the differences and the green highlighted wording here in each part on both sides of the chart. In this case, you notice that when we use fixed future for present simple form, we talk about schedules or timetables. That is to say that we are talking about established or typical future situations. with 100% of probability to happen in the future. On the other hand, when we'll deal arranged future where you borrow present continuous form, this is the opposite because we deal with not a typical future event, that is to say, that is occasional, that is a sporadic future event. Okay, and you organize your time and you reserve part of your time in your agenda or in your calendar to attend or to perform a future action, a future arranged action. Let's go through some examples for a better understanding, guys. Example number one. The train departs at 8 a.m. in the morning tomorrow. In this case, notice that the verb departs is in present tense and takes the s at the end of the word because the train is a third person form singular of the subject. So this is all part of a timetable. The train company or the train transportation company has a timetable in which there is a train departing at the same time every morning. So tomorrow it is 100% probable that this train will depart at the same time tomorrow. That's why we take this present form of the verb to talk about a fixed future that is part of the schedule or the timetable. Example number two. I start classes tomorrow at 9 o'clock in the morning. This is part of a class schedule. This is already an established typical future situation with 100% of probability to happen. Notice that the verb start does not take the s at the end because the subject is the first person singular. Third example. She is taking her tutoring class next Friday at midday. This is borrowing the present continuous form of take, the verb be and the ing form of the verb take is taking. What is this? What is the gist of this third sentence? Well, this is talking about a non-typical future event or an occasional one. That is to say that it has a reservation in somebody else's agenda or calendar. The situation that is being expressed in this sentence, if a student who does not attend tutoring classes typically, it is not part of a routine, but it is occasional. So that's why that person needs to set in his or her agenda a time, a day, and a place to attend that tutoring class. So that's why we take the present continuous form of the verb for the future meaning for expressing arranged or not typical future.